All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, you can post them. Should be below the video if you're on a smaller screen, like a phone. If you're on a larger screen, like a computer, it should be to the right of the video. Also, want to mention you can ask your questions at any time, 24/7, and it will be answered live during the next office hours. I do recommend that you attend the office hours live to see the answer to your question, just in case you have a follow-up question or if I have a follow-up question to allow your question to get answered the best way possible. But I understand you might be out playing some golf or something like that, unable to see the answer to your question. So if that is the case, you can see the answer to your question at the archived office hours. Once office hours is complete, it will be put into the archive, and you can access the archive by clicking the green button below the video. Lastly, I want to mention I do offer online lessons where I work one-on-one with students using the OnForm app. It's very easy to use. We just take a quick quiz in the beginning to kind of figure out some things about your golf game, and then you'll send the appropriate videos. I look at your swing and give you specific drills that will pertain to your game and to help you the best way possible. So if you're interested in and you're maybe stuck not knowing exactly what you want to work on, or if you just want to have a path that to getting better, then feel free to sign up. You can do so if you're watching the office hours live here. There should be a link above the video here. If you are watching the archived office hours, there should be somewhere on this page where you can click and sign up. If you don't see anything, all you have to do is go to the instruction tab, then go to the online lessons or the swing reviews from the drop down there, and that will bring you to the page where you can choose your instructor. If you don't see any spots available, no worries. Click to join the waiting list. So that way, whenever I open up spots in the future, we will send out an email to the waiting list first to kind of give them a head start before we let everybody else know. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it here. So Greg T says, "Hi Q. I was watching the John Deere Classic this past weekend and noticed several players, especially Brian Campbell, loop the club to the inside on the downswing. Is this something they intentionally do to shallow the club, and something I should try?" So I'm not sure if I'm familiar with Brian Campbell's swing. I would venture to say he's not swinging away from the inside. We don't want to swing excessively from the inside. It might look like he's swinging away from the inside, maybe because maybe he has a very outside takeaway. Well, since we got a little bit, we just got two questions in here. So why don't I just go on YouTube and see if I can check out a video of Brian Campbell's swing? Just to, who'd you say? Brian Campbell, right? Yeah, Brian Campbell. Let's see if we can find something. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm trying to find here we go. Yeah, he just has a pretty outside takeaway. Yeah, he has a pretty outside takeaway, and it looks like he's kind of looping way back. So it's kind of like, I don't know if you remember Matt Wolff. Matt Wolff played on the PGA Tour for a little while when he started out, and then he went to the Live Tour. He won, I think, Rookie of the Year when he was on the PGA Tour. Played with Victor Hovland at OK State. But anyway, Matt Wolff's swing is like this, right? He brings it way outside and then loops it around, but he's not swinging excessively from the inside, right? That's the key distinction here. Is when you see that, they're really swinging fairly neutral. The best players in the world are very, very close to neutral with their path. They're usually within 3 degrees of neutral, either out to in or in to out. That's typically what they're going to be. They're not swinging 6, 7, 8 degrees into out, because they would have to curve the ball too much. And if you curve the ball a lot, it's hard to be very consistent. Obviously, there are some outliers, like Bubba Watson pretty much curves his shots quite a bit. Excuse me, but for the most part, most tour players are just not curving the ball that much on purpose anyway. If you want to check something out, go to the #1 ball striker in the world. If you search Scotty Scheffler on YouTube, there's actually a range session that's like a 20-minute video, and it's just Scotty Scheffler hitting shots on the range and him talking to his coach as he's doing that. And they have shot tracer on every single one of these shots. And if you look at these shots, most of them are going pretty darn straight. Now, everyone talks about how he fades the ball. Scotty fades the ball. Well, Scotty hits the ball really stinking straight, and that ball just kind of falls to the right just a little bit. That's what we're really calling a fade. Most of us, especially if you've been to see Scotty Scheffler play golf live, right? And if you've been to a tournament to watch him, or if you go to that and watch that range session, you're going to see that those balls are going really darn straight for the most part. He's not hitting big curves. Most of us, what we would call a fade, he would call a slice. That he would, so that's really what it comes down to. So we don't want to be swinging excessively too much into out. So here's what I would say. If your ball flight is good, if your ball flight is relatively little no curvature, you don't need to change anything that you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right track. That's exactly what you should be doing. That's ideally what you'd be doing. You would want your club path to be very close to zero. You'd want your face to be very close to zero. And that's going to enable you to hit very, very straight shots. And your misses are also going to be smaller as well. When you have less curve on your shots, your misses are much smaller. And I believe that's why most of the best players pretty much hit the ball mostly straight, because when you have excessive curve on the ball, if there's wind that acts on, if you're hitting into a wind, if you play a heavy draw and you hit into a wind, that ball is going to be very, very hard to control because the wind is just going to increase that. If you had a fairly straight ball, the wind isn't nearly going to affect it near as much. Now, I'm not talking about distance so much. It's definitely going to affect it, distance-wise. I'm talking off-center dispersion. If you hit a fairly straight shot into the wind, it's just not going to move near as much. If you normally hit a heavy draw, that's going to turn into a hook, right? And it's going to be very, very hard to control. So I don't recommend trying to necessarily do what Brian Campbell is doing in an effort to swing way from the inside, because that's not really what Brian Campbell is doing. What Brian Campbell is doing is kind of a lesser version of what Matt Wolff is doing, right? Matt Wolff is like this, right? Brian Campbell is like this, right? He's shallowing out the club. Now, should you be shallowing out the club? Absolutely, you should be shallowing out the club, but we don't want to excessively swing the club from the inside. So basically what it comes down to is very, very simple way to kind of know. Very, very simple way is you could easily kind of test this. So if you use the blue brick here, if you're not familiar with what the blue brick is, maybe you've been living under a rock, haven't been seeing our emails all about the blue brick. It's a training aid that Clay invented. Lots and lots of drills you can do with it. One of the best things you can do with it is to work on swinging on the appropriate path down to the ball, getting the proper swing plane. So if you're interested in the blue brick, if you go to the resources tab on the website, that will take you to the page with all the stuff that we recommend: launch monitors, training aids, books, all kinds of stuff on there. Can't remember everything that's on there, but you can find a link to the blue brick on there, as well as many other things that I recommend. The divot board is on there. The putting mirror that I talk about sometimes is on there. It was on there at least at one point. So there's lots of cool training aids on there. I definitely recommend. So with this, if you want to make sure that you are shallowing out the club, that you're swinging the club, you're not swinging the club over the top, then very simply put the stick in the appropriate club. Now on here, we got sand wedge, 6-iron, and driver, right? So you can use every club in the bag on this thing. I know we just have 3 clubs on there, but you can use every club in the bag. So driver, you're just using driver on that one. For the sand wedge, any wedge you can use in that one, and then everything else you can use in the 6-iron. So 5-iron you can use in the 6-iron, 9-iron you can use in the 6-iron, right? So it's going to be, it's not going to be exact, but it's going to be plenty close enough. And even if I put the stick in here for the 6-iron versus the wedge, it's really not that much different at all. It's almost the same. It's like a two degree difference. So it's just not going to be that much different. But for the driver, it's quite a bit different, right? Just because it's such a longer club compared to all the other ones. All right. So all you need to do. Now, normally I would put the stick in the hole that's on the front of the brick and point that toward the target, but my wall is in the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that up against the brick, but it's going to serve the same purpose. And now I'm just going to take a ball and I'm going to put it about a club head width inside of this stick. And if I can easily swing underneath this stick, now it needs to be farther back. I'm putting it right here just so that way you can still see it in the video here. But if you can easily swing underneath it, then you're not too much over the top. Now on the other side of that, what I can do is I can put this stick now on the other side, and I can put the ball club head width outside of here. And if I'm able to swing over it and not hit it, then I know I'm not too much from the inside, right? So that allows you to kind of make sure that you're kind of getting, you might have heard the slot. Well, that's just kind of creating a slot for you to swing down. So you don't need to do any loopiness. I personally, I don't think that's something. I don't know Brian Campbell personally. I would venture to say that that's not something that's probably just something that comes naturally to him. He's trying to get the club to work down the correct plane, and that's his way of doing it, right? Matt Wolf, that's his way of doing it. Raymond Floyd, right? He brings the club way inside and then brings it down over that plane, over the plane that he brought it up on, right? The club, or excuse me, the ball doesn't care about your backswing. I find that a lot of people are very they're kind of obsessed with the takeaway a little bit, obsessed with the backswing and stuff. I'm less interested in the backswing. I'm most interested in the downswing and getting the club to work down. And however you bring the club up to get the club to work down in the appropriate way, I'm all about that. So you're going to see high-level players, Brian Campbell, Matt Wolf, Raymond Floyd, Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy. I mean, the list goes on. Any pro you can think of, right? You're going to see various takeaways. You're going to see some players that bring it way outside. You're going to see players that bring it inside. You're going to see everything in between. Now, you might be thinking, well, Q, isn't an inside takeaway bad? No. An inside takeaway is not inherently a bad thing. There are ways that you can do it, which here's my kind of philosophy on the inside takeaway. Like I said, there are numerous high-level Hall of Fame golfers that brought the club inside. Raymond Floyd, being one of those off the top of my head. Now, there's not as many of them, right? But there are a lot of them. And if you bring the club inside and you're able to bring the club down on a good plane, don't worry about your inside takeaway. It's totally fine. I personally have an inside takeaway myself. It's not as inside as Raymond Floyd's was, but it is inside. It's inside my hand. So my takeaway is about right there, right? So if I go to club parallel, my club is a little bit inside my hands. Raymond Floyd was kind of more back here, right? But you can bring the club inside and hit great golf shots. It's about how the club is working down. So I think it may have been something a long time ago that maybe got misconstrued or something like that, because here's what we don't want to have happen in a takeaway. We don't want to have the face rolling open, because now if you can recover from this, that is totally fine, but I've never seen anyone that's able to recover from a fanned open club face in the backswing. But what happens is that when you fan open that club face, where does the club head go? It goes inside. I've never seen anyone fan open the club face and bring the club in line with the hands or outside the hands. Never seen a single person do that. So every single person I've ever seen that rolls that face open and gets that trail hand under the club like this has that club face wide open, and that club goes inside. that is bad. And I think people linked the inside takeaway to something bad. When if you have a Raymond Floyd inside takeaway where you're like this, well, look at my club face. My club face is not rolled open. My club face is in a great spot. The club is just going inside, right? So I think that's really what that comes down to. And I think the other thing is when I see instructors really are adamant about bringing the club up, outside your hands or things like that to get the momentum of the club working in the right direction. I think that those might be golfers that they themselves bring the club up in that way, and they don't understand how you can bring the club inside and still get the club to work down in a good spot. Because when you bring the club outside the hands, there are some forces that make things a little bit easier, possibly, right? Then what that is that when I bring the club more outside of my hands or in line with my hands, the club is going to want to more go that way. Doesn't mean it will. It just means that it may want to go more that way in my transition. Whereas when I bring it inside, my club may tend to want to go that way. Doesn't mean it will. Just means it may want to, right? So that's kind of what I typically see. So, but like I said, you don't need to bring the club way outside, loop it to the inside. I personally, I don't. To me, I feel like I don't understand where the club head is when I try to do that, because I used to, like I said, I have an inside takeaway, and a long time ago I tried to fix it, and in trying to fix it, it just feels like I don't know where that club head is, and that's important. You need to have a good feel to know where that club is. I just feel like it's kind of looping around, and to me, I kind of like to feel like I'm bringing it up. I know where it is. I can feel where it is. It doesn't have like this crazy momentum working in any direction. It's fairly static, and then I can move it where I need to in the downswing. That's what works for me. That's what I like, and that's with an inside takeaway. I'm able to do that. So, yeah, I wouldn't get too caught up in the inside takeaway thing. If you're rolling the face open, that's one thing. But if you're bringing that club inside and it's in a great position and you're bringing it down in a good spot, that's great. There's no reason to try to change it to somebody else, to what somebody else does, because what Brian Campbell does, that works great for him. That may be something that is very intuitive to him, and works really, really great for him. And obviously he's playing on the PGA Tour, so it must be working pretty good, right? So that he's going to stick with that. I wouldn't necessarily try to change your golf swing to what his swing is, looping it inside, if you're already kind of in a good spot. And if you're not, then I recommend working with the blue brick, and that's really going to be the easiest way. Find the way that's easiest for you, because what you do naturally and what comes naturally to you is going to be what you do best, and it's going to be what you do most consistently, right? A lot of people. So I still do this, but I have a quiz or a questionnaire that I send to onboarding online students, right? And what this quiz is it's just a series of questions to give me an idea of what their game is all about. And in there, I actually removed this question because I just got the same answer every single time. But I asked, is there something that you're looking to achieve or get out of doing these online lessons? And pretty much every single person, I would say at least 95% of the time, would say consistency. I want to be more consistent, right? Well, what I see a lot of people do, and it's really no fault of their own, it's just, kind of the general information that is out there, is what I see a lot of people do is they try to put a square peg in a round hole, where they're trying to do something that is very different and foreign to them, as opposed to doing something that is very natural to them. And because that's really doing something, so let's say, me personally, let's say that I saw the Brian Campbell swing and I was like, hey, I want to change my takeaway to that. I want to get this club working outside and then looping back to the inside. Well, I can spend a long time, working on that and getting it to but it's just very unnatural to me. It's unnatural. It feels loopy. I don't have any feel for the club head. if I practice it a bunch, I might be able to get kind of good at it. I don't know if I would really get to the level that I am now with my current backswing, but I would hope that I could, right? I really, honestly, I don't think that I could, because it just feels so, I don't feel like I have any control of what's going on. Maybe eventually with practice, I might get that control, but for what reason, right? I already am bringing the club down in a good spot. So what I would recommend doing is here's how you really get good at golf. It's really as simple as this, and this is the basis for every single one of my lessons. Every lesson that I do, it is to improve one of these things or some of these things. So here's what we need to do to be good at golf. We need to make ball first contact, center face contact, square the club face, have a fairly neutral club path, fairly neutral club pace with that, right? And then some speed behind it. If we have those things, we can play great golf. That's all that is necessary to play great golf. So anytime you are thinking about changing or doing something in your swing, it absolutely must improve one of or some of those things. If it doesn't, then to be honest with you, you're probably wasting your time a little bit. And that's what I think possibly, seeing Brian Campbell swing and thinking, hey, I want to get that club looping to the inside. I could see that being often detrimental and maybe make you go the other direction, right? Because I could see that maybe possibly getting you excessively from the inside. Because remember, we want a neutral path, or very close to neutral path. Within a few degrees of neutral is what we want. And if we start looping that club from the inside, we start getting 6-8 degrees from the inside. Now all of a sudden I'm hitting big, heavy draws, and I'm putting a lot of curve on the ball, and it's going to make it difficult to be consistent. So what you're going to be most consistent at is what you do naturally. That's what you're going to. So I like to try to have students try to do what they do naturally, and if the only time I try to move away from that is if those things are way off. If those things are way off, the ground contact, the strike location, the face angle, the club path, the speed, if these things are not where they need to be, that's where the interventions come in. But if they're in a good spot, then it's about getting better at being in that spot, getting more consistent with it, right? Because that's the technique side, and then we have the skill side. Technique is how you move. Skill is your ability to control the way that you move. So if you have solid technique, meaning you're able to make ball first contact, center face contact, square the face, have a neutral path with some speed, all at the same time, you're able to put that together at the same time. Now, obviously, we're not doing it every single time. Not even the best players in the world are getting it every single time. But then it's just about getting to where we can do that or where we can do that more often. Not every single time necessarily, but get to where we can do that more consistently. And the way that you do that is by doing what you do most naturally, and then working on drills to improve the skill. Now, if any of those things are off, the technique is off, it's way off, and it's not allowing you. So let's say you're someone who swings way over the top, right? Let's say that you're someone that swings way from the inside, since we're kind of already talking about that. Let's say you're someone who swings way from the inside, and that's just what comes naturally to you. Well, that's not really going to work very well. So what we need to do is we need to get your path more neutral. And in the beginning, it's going to feel awkward, but as you work on it some more, you're going to get more and more comfortable with it. So that's really what I would recommend doing. All right, let's keep going here. Sorry for the long-winded answer. We just have one other question. So just trying to, if you got more questions, make sure to ask them. All right, so Guffron says, hi, Q. I am pulling driver shots to the left. I usually keep the height low to avoid pop-up. Ball position inside left heel. How to improve launch angle to reduce ball spin and get more distance? Thanks. If you're pulling the ball, what's happening is you're coming over the top, right? So a pull is caused by an over-the-top swing. Now, think about this. When you're coming over the top, right? So if you're coming over the top, how is my club working down to the ball? It's going to be working more downward, right? Now think about it this way. If I swing more from the inside, right? If I swing, I mean, I'm not saying we want to swing away from the inside. I'm just saying, as an example here, if I swing way from the inside, how's my club now working up into the ball? It's probably working more level or up. If the ball's on a tee, I can actually hit up on it, right? So really, what I would recommend doing to get there is to get your club path to be more neutral. So what I would recommend doing is work with the blue brick in the driver setting on shallowing and keep your feet square to it, right? So here, I'll grab the driver so I can demonstrate with the driver here. So I'll put it in the driver slot here, put the stick on the ground. We're gonna snug this blue brick up to the stick here. There we go. So then you put a ball, tee up a ball about a club head-ish inside of that stick. And I want to make sure that I'm swinging underneath the stick. If I swing over this stick, you can see if I swing over the stick, how this club's good. Imagine how the angle of attack of this club. It's going to be more downward, right? If I swing underneath this stick, right, my angle of attack is going to be more level or upward, right? So what I have found is we don't typically need to work on trying to get more, hitting more up on the ball. Typically what most people need to do is they just need to get the club working on the appropriate plane. And if they do that, they're going to be at least coming in level. And that's going to allow you to be the most consistent. There's a little bit of a misconception out there. And I used to think this myself, that in order to hit the ball long, we really need to hit up on it and all that stuff. And we really don't need to do that. In fact, your average PGA Tour player hits down on the ball 1 degree. Now, granted, your average PGA Tour player has more speed than the common person, right? And that enables them to do that a little bit more easily. So let me explain. If a tour player with a lot of speed hit up on the ball a lot, they would hit the ball very, very high, and it could be difficult to control. I call these moon balls, where they hit just these big moon balls. Now they might go really far, and that might be great for a long drive competition because it will give you a little bit more distance, but it doesn't give you as much distance. I find that a lot of people, when they're trying to focus on distance, they're focusing on hitting up on it. And that's a lot of times that's the last thing that you need to do, because what the common instruction for hitting up on it is to have the ball way forward in your stance, tee the ball really high, get a nice wide stance, angle your body away, and do all that. Well, this is all assuming that you're already shallowing out the club and swinging on a good plane. But most people aren't in that situation. A lot of people who are hitting it low and are looking like in your situation and are looking to get more distance are coming over the top, right? And if you do all of that, you put the ball more forward, right? It's going to tend to make you come more over the top, because the more forward the ball is in your stance, the more you will tend to swing to the left to get to it. So what I would recommend doing is maybe move the ball a little bit more back. Don't worry about hitting up on it so much. Just worry about neutralizing your club path, hitting the ball in the middle of the face with some speed. That's going to help you to hit the ball the farthest. If you're looking at the hierarchy of things that I would tell people to work on to improve their distance, hitting up on it would be very low on the list. Now, there are some situations, like, for example, I had a student a little while back that I was trying to think of, like, the last person that I worked on hitting up on the ball. I had a student a little while back that had the ball positioned forward, but when they came into contact with their driver, they were like this. So they really slid their body forward, and they wanted to hit the ball higher, and they were hitting down on it quite a bit because they were coming. They even had a lot of shaft lean with their driver impact. Their impact position with the driver looked like this, right? It's pretty rare to see that, right? So that's the only person I would say in the last long while. It's the last person I can remember that I worked on hitting up on the driver with, because that's not really the key to distance. You don't gain as much distance as you think by hitting up on it. Ping did some research on this fairly recently. Let me actually, and if you want to check it out, just do a Google search for, I'll test it myself here. So ping angle of attack chart. Let me see. Yeah, so if you go to the ping angle of attack chart, and you go to the one that's by my golf distance, let me click on that. Here, I'll put it in the chat, so that way you guys can just go to the link, go to the appropriate link. So if you go to that link, let's say that you are someone that fairly average individual, you swing 96 miles an hour with your driver, and let's say you go from hitting 2 degrees down to hitting 2 degrees up on the ball. So you're making, that's a huge difference, by the way. But if you go from 2 degrees down to 2 degrees up, you're going to go from hitting it 247 total, 223 carry. That's hitting, that's 4 down. So you're going to go from 251 total to 256 total. 5 yards. That's it. You know, a lot of people, if you went from let's say you go from hitting 0 to hitting 4, it's 6 yards, right? It's still the same difference. So let's say you increased your angle of attack by 4 degrees. For the average person, you're gaining 5 or 6 yards. I think most people, if you did a poll of recreational golfers and you asked them, like, hey, if you improved your angle of attack by 4 degrees, let's say you went from 0 to 4 for hitting level on it 4 degrees, or hitting level on it to hitting up on it 4 degrees, how much distance would you gain? A lot of people would, my guess would be like 20 to 30 yards. If you had a multiple choice saying, 0 to 7 yards, 7 to 15 yards, 15 to 25 yards, 25 plus yards, I would venture to say you would get a lot of people to say 25 plus yards, or even 7 to or 15 to 25 yards, or whatever. My guess is you get a lot of people to say that. There'd be very, very, very few people that would say 0 to 7 yards. And it's just because it's the common knowledge that everyone seems to have. I used to think that as well, until I saw this research. And I always kind of wondered it, because I was like, man, I hit up, I've tested it where I've gone to where I've hit up on the ball a lot. And it's like, man, I hit the ball higher. And if you're downwind, and you got, maybe you got an elevation change or something like that, there are situations where hitting it higher would induce more distance, right? Depending on the situation. But all things equal, right? A level ground, all that stuff, it really doesn't make as much of a difference as what you think. What really makes a difference is getting the club on the correct path, right? Getting the club on the right path, not cutting across the ball. So getting the club on the right path, hitting the ball in the middle of the face. To me, this is the most overlooked skill in golf, is working on center face contact. I rarely, if I go to the range and see a lot of golfers at the range, I rarely ever see anyone drilling or working on hitting the ball in the middle of the face. Very rarely. And that's why I believe it's the most overlooked skill, and because it's arguably the most important skill, and it's probably the least worked on. I very, very few people will work on hitting the ball more in the middle of the face more often to get more distance. So hitting the ball in the middle of the face, get yourself some foot powder spray. This stuff right here is fantastic. Dr. Scholl's Odor X, that's the stuff you want. Go to about any pharmacy and you can pick up this stuff. It's not very expensive. It's like $5 or $6. I think I got this at Walmart. Maybe it's a little bit more expensive or a little bit less where you live. But here in the Orlando, Florida area, $5 or $6 at Walmart. Couple tips for using this. So one, make sure you shake it up really, really good. If you don't, it may not have that white powder come out. It may kind of spray on clear. So make sure that you shake it up really good. Now, when you initially spray it on, it's not going to look really, really white. So just give it a couple seconds to dry, and then it will come on light and or white. And the other thing I want to mention here, use very little. You don't need much, like literally 1 second of spray. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll show you. This is how much you want. That's it. So about 1 second of spray, and it's drying. It's just sprayed on. It's starting to dry now. And if you're outside in a breeze, it's probably gonna dry a lot faster. Now keep in mind, this driver, the face of this driver is black, right? It's a black metal face. Now look at the face, right? You can see that it is white. So very, very light coating on there. I didn't take much. Now when I hit the ball, I'm going to be able to easily see where I strike it on the face. What you don't want to do is you don't want to put it on there very liberally and cake it on there. Because if you cake it on there, it will mess with the spin. It will slip on the face, and it will mess your ball flight up. So just very, very very light amount. I do not recommend impact tape for that same reason. It messes with the spin. The ball will slip more on tape than it does on the normal face. So I do not recommend the tape. So I recommend the foot power spray. Very, very easy to use. This other stuff is fantastic as well. I just generally don't recommend it as much. It works just as good. It's just not as readily available. I think you can only buy this stuff online, but you might be able to find it at a Dick's Sporting Goods or a golf store, Golf Superstore, or something like that, Golf Galaxy. But it's called Strike Spray. You can get this on Amazon. It's a little bit more expensive. To me, really, the only difference is this doesn't really have much of an odor to it, whereas the Dr. Scholl's foot powder spray has like a foot powder odor, whereas this is kind of mostly odorless, very, very little odor to it. So if you can't stand the smell of the foot powder spray, then the Strike Spray might be for you. It's just going to cost a little bit more. So definitely recommend both of these and train it. See where you're hitting on the face. The way that you train it is you see where you're hitting it on the face, and to see if you have any sort of bias. So you'll see if you have a bias toward the heel or toward the toe or something like that, and then you try to shift that bias. And then if you don't have a bias, then it's about tightening up that dispersion, right? There's a very, very high correlation between your ability to hit the ball in the middle of the face and handicap. They tested various handicap levels, and they found like 20 handicaps have like a 3 or more inch dispersion of strikes on the face. You go down to a 10 handicap, it's like half that much. It's like 1.5 to 2 inches. You go down to a scratch, it's like a half inch. You go down to a pro, it's a little bit less than that, right? So if you want to be good at golf, get really good at hitting the ball in the middle of the face. The cool part about that is if you're very good at hitting the ball in the middle of the face, it's much easier to diagnose the problems in your swing or the problems with your ball flight, I should say, and possibly the problems with your swing. Because when you hit the ball in the middle of the face, you can look at the ball flight and know exactly what happened. You can know if the face was too open or too closed, if your club path is too much to the inside or too much out to in. If you don't hit the ball in the middle of the face, it's very difficult to know these things, because when you don't hit the ball in the middle of the face, what happens is the face twists, and that can make the ball start on a different line than what you intended. So it will make it start. So let's say you hit the ball on the toe, the face will twist open, and that ball will start more to the right than it normally would. So you could be coming into contact and the face is very closed, but then you hit it off the toe and the face twists open and maybe it starts dead straight. Well, you don't really know exactly, how close your face was. Whereas if you hit the ball in the middle of the face and you see the ball curving way too much, then okay, I need to tone that down considerably, right? So that's why it's very, very important. So definitely want to train that. So if you're looking to gain distance, what I would be looking at are hitting the ball in the middle of the face, having a neutral club path with a square face. You want minimal curve on these shots. Also, the best players, they don't curve their ball very much. Again, Ping does all this research, and it's just awesome that they do it because it really helps us understand what exactly the best players are doing. So another research thing that they did is they tested various handicap levels and how much they curve their golf shots. And they found on average, tour players, for every 100 yards that they hit a shot, they curve the ball less than 4 yards, a little less than 4 yards. So if you think about like a 300-yard drive, that ball is curving on average less than 10 to 12 yards. Now, most of us, if we stood behind somebody and watched them hit a 300-yard drive and we saw that ball curve 10 yards, it would be hardly noticeable at all. That's very, very little curve. That's very minimal curve. Most of us would call that a straight shot, but tour players, they get more than that. They get 20, 25, 30, 40 yards of curve. Those are big, huge curving shots. But I see recreational golfers curving a lot of their shots, or some of them curve every shot that amount. And it's just very difficult to be good at golf when you do that, because especially if you're playing in the wind, I'm telling you, if you're playing in the wind with that kind of curve on your shots, it's very, very difficult to be consistent. I'll tell you personally, I struggle with hooks sometimes. I struggle with getting the club face too close, and when I don't, when I have a little bit too much draw on my shots, I'm going to tend to get that hook in there sometimes. But when I have a little bit too much hook, a little bit too much draw on those shots, I don't play near as well because it's just harder to control. Even if I'm playing, if it's windy at all, it just makes it so much more difficult to control. Now, if it's a dead still day or something like that, it may not be that big of a deal. But if there's some breeze out there, even if it's just like a 10 mile an hour, which isn't much, you get out there and it's 20 mile an hour, good luck. It's just going to be really, really difficult to control things. But if you go out there with 20 mile an hour wind and you got a pretty straight ball flight, you have a big advantage over golfers that do. In fact, a lot of times when I was playing in college, I loved it when the weather was bad. Loved it because I felt like I had an advantage over a lot of the players because they just couldn't play in the wind, and I was better at playing in the wind because I tried to hit the ball pretty much dead straight all the time. Now, like I said, I do have a tendency to get too much curve on the ball, and I think for me, the reason for it is it just feels so much more powerful when I do that. When the face gets more closed, because when you close the face, it also de-lofts the face, and when you de-loft the face, you can press it more. And a lot of what we do in the swing is to get more power, right? So if something feels more powerful, even though sometimes can lead to a not as great of a result, it can be easy to dip into that a little bit too much sometimes. So here's what I would recommend doing. I would recommend trying to neutralize your path. And the way to do that, it might seem a little bit different, but you might want to move the ball a little bit more back, because you might find if you set up with the blue brick or something that forces your path not to come over the top, you might find it near impossible to hit the ball if it's forward in your stance. So you might want to move it a little bit more back. There are many, many, many high-level players that have a ball position that's not very far forward with their driver. Go look at Minwoo Lee. Minwoo Lee hits the ball as far as anybody out there. I mean, he hits the ball so far, and his ball position is not way far forward. It's not near as far forward. Nelly Korda doesn't have the ball position way far forward. Has it just a little bit forward of the middle. And if you watch on TV, you might notice some guys. If you get a side angle, you might notice that a lot of them don't play the ball crazy forward. They don't play it off their lead foot, even though that's what a lot of the conventional instruction is. And it's because it's more difficult to get the club to work on the appropriate plane. And really for them, a lot of it is because they hit the ball too high if they hit up on it too much. But also, you just don't lose. If you lost 20 to 30 yards by not hitting up on the ball, trust me, every tour player will be hitting up on it because that's very significant. But if it's 5, 7 at those speeds, at their speeds, because if we go back to that chart, so if you look at your average tour player swings at about 115. So they got 114 on here. So if you go from 2 down to 2 up, you gain 8 yards. So it's a little bit more as you go up because it's a bigger, it's more speed. So it's if you're looking at it from a I can't remember what that's called, the comparison where you anyway, if you look at it from that standpoint, it makes sense. Like if you have more speed, you're going to gain a little bit more by hitting up on it. But again, 8 yards is just not that significant enough because sure, they might hit it 8 yards farther, but they're going to be off the. They're not going to hit it near as accurately, and they'd rather have a lot more accuracy and lose a little bit of distance. So yeah. All right, let's see if we got any more questions here. Let me refresh this. And just to continue on the distance talk, so get your path more neutral. That's it, because the reality is that if you have your ball position forward and you're coming way over the top, you're probably not hitting up on it anyway. Whereas if you move your ball position back to a place to where you could at least swing from the inside, you might be able to hit up on the ball even with the ball position not as far forward because your club path is in a better spot. So that's what I would do first. I would work with the blue brick and get your club path working underneath that stick. If you don't have a blue brick, you don't want to get one. No worries. I mean, you don't have to get one. But if you can put a stick in the ground at about a 45-degree angle and then swing underneath that stick, that will help you to get your path in a better spot as well. So work on getting the path to be good, work on hitting the ball in the middle of the face, and then work on getting more club head speed. To get more club head speed, I would recommend checking out the 20-minute distance fix. That's all about gaining club head speed. And trust me, if hitting up on the ball gave you a ton more distance, it would be included in the 20-minute distance fix. It just doesn't make that big of a difference. But for every mile per hour you gain about 2.6 yards. And the average untrained person gains 10 to 12 miles per hour. So that's 25 to 30 yards right there, just by working through the 20-minute distance fix. So if you want to check out the 20-minute distance fix, go to the instruction tab, and then from the drop down there, click the 20-minute distance fix and get started on those drills. But I would first make sure that your club is coming down on a good path, and then you're hitting the ball in the middle of the face. I think you'll be surprised about how much farther you hit it just doing that, not worrying about hitting up on it and all that stuff, because it's not. And then the other thing is the reason why the biggest reason for pop-ups is an over-the-top swing as well. The reason is that your club is bottoming out where the ball is, right? So if you think about it, if I'm hitting up on the ball, right, my club is coming in, bottoming out, and then working up on it, right? If my fist is the golf ball here. Now, if I'm swinging over the top and the bottom of my swing is more forward, it's underneath the ball, right? Well, then I'm going to swing underneath it and I might tend to pop it up. So if you can get to where you're swinging more from the inside, that's going to level out your angle of attack, or even get your angle of attack to be more upward without you even really trying to hit up on it. Your club path is going to help you to hit more up on it. And then from there, you should be able to be in a much better spot. So that's what I would recommend doing if you're struggling with that. Now, if you look on video and you see kind of like what I was saying before, where you're way shifted forward like this with the driver, then it might be okay. Get a little bit wider. And when you shift to the lead side, I want you to push against that and stay behind. What you can also do is you can put a stick outside your kind of right on the edge of your heel here, and your goal would be to make a swing and have your hip does not touch that stick. right? So you have to stay behind. You shift into that lead side, then you push away from that to stay behind it. That's for driver. Now for an iron, I like you to be forward. I want you to be forward because we want that downward movement into the ball to be able to make ball first contact. I want that. And that's also going to help you to get your hands more forward to compress the ball and all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about that a little bit since we don't have any questions and we got some time left here. But let's talk about working on shaft lean. I find a lot of people really, really want to work on shaft lean. And really, there are some things that we need to make sure they're in a good place before you try to work on getting your hands to be pushed out in front more. So the first thing is ball position. I find that a lot of people that release the club early have the ball position really far forward, right? So actually, let's rewind a minute. If you want to work on shaft lean, I would first ask yourself this question. Do you want to hit the ball higher or lower? If you want to hit the ball higher, you should not be working on shaft lean, because working on that is going to make you hit the ball lower, because when you get the shaft leaning forward, it de-lofts the face, and that's going to make the ball launch lower and go lower, right? So you might compress it a little bit more, but it's going to be way lower. And you might end up with ball flight that isn't very functional. The last thing you want is to work on something, work really hard on something, because, by the way, getting more shaft lean, the way that a lot of people work on it, is the most difficult thing to change in the golf swing. And really, we don't need to work on it. Most people don't need to work on it in that way, because most people don't need as much shaft lean as a tour player. So a tour player needs to have plenty of shaft lean because they have lots of speed. The average club head speed of a tour player with their driver is around 114, 115. Most recreational golfers don't swing near that fast. So when you don't swing as fast, you don't need as much shaft lean, because if you have lower club head speed, I shouldn't say lower, but like the average club head speed for a male with the driver is 95, for an amateur golfer is 95 miles an hour. So if you're swinging 95 miles an hour with your driver, that's 20 miles an hour slower than the average tour player. And that's even slower than the above average tour players like Rory and Bryson and stuff like that. They're swinging they're swinging well over 120. They're swinging 125 to 130, right? So they're swinging 30 miles an hour faster, than your average male amateur golfer. So the reason why that can be a problem is if we don't have that much speed and we try to get all that shaft lean, the ball flight may not become functional, because you're going to be in a position, you might end up in a position where you can't land a ball on the green and hold it on the green. I actually had this situation with several students because they were adamant about working on shaft lean and they didn't have a lot of club head speed. Then they got the shaft lean and they complained that they can't hold the green. And it's kind of like, this is what I was saying. We may not want to work on this because it's going to take it takes a lot of hard work to change it, and it may change it to a ball flight that's not very functional for you, that makes it more difficult to play. You don't want to be in a position where, now it depends on the kind of golf you play, I suppose. So if you play a lot of link style golf, the Scottish Open, I believe is this weekend, right? So if you're playing in golf conditions like that, where it's windy, it's fairly flat, and you're able to run the ball up in the green, you want to keep it low. That's one thing. That's a completely different game, right? But most of us are playing a game where we want to land it on the green and we want to keep it on the green. And in order to do that, we need to have some height on our shots. If you're in a position where you're saying, hey, I don't want to hit it lower, then you definitely should not work on shaft lean, because that's what's going to happen. What I would work on first is gaining more club head speed. So that way you put you in a position where, hey, I'm hitting the ball too high. Because that's where I was. I was in a position where I didn't have a lot of shaft lean, but I had a lot of club head speed. I was hitting moonball iron shots, and they weren't going anywhere either. Basically, with my club head speed, now I hit my 9-iron, about 160 yards, right? 155 to 160 yards. Before, I was hitting my 9-iron 140 to 145 yards. And that's just because I was just hitting it so stinking high because I didn't have my hands forward enough. In my situation, I needed to hit the ball lower desperately. So working on shaft lean is definitely something that I need to work on. But for most people don't really need to work on shaft lean. Most people need to work on making better ball first contact, making center face contact, getting the face squared up, getting the path more neutral, adding speed. Those are typically the things that most people need to work on, but it's not the most interesting and the most sexy thing to work on. So a lot of people don't want to work on it. But let's talk about the things that we want to make sure that we're doing if we want to get more shaft lean. So the first thing is ball position. Like I said, I've seen a lot of golfers that come to me want to get shaft lean, and their impact position looks like this. The ball position is really far forward, and they have a little bit of shaft lean, but the ball position is really far forward. So if I put that ball in the middle of my stance, and I have let me go back to that. So let's say this is my impact position. And let's say now I put that ball in the middle of my stance, but my hands are in the same place. Well, now look, I automatically have more shaft lean now. My hands are in the same place, but now I have more shaft lean. Another thing that I often see is this, where we're coming to contact and we're like this. We're very angled away as we're coming in. So if I just get to where I'm more on my lead side, well, now look, automatically I have more shaft lean. All right, so that's what I would do first is I would get your ball position more in the middle of your stance, even a little bit back of the middle of your stance is fine. There's no rule. I know it's unconventional, but there's no rule in golf that says you have to have the ball forward of the middle of your stance. You can put the ball wherever you want in your stance. So, I mean, technically not, but as far as forward or back, there's no rule that says I can't have the ball there or there, right? So if I want to hit the ball lower and compress it more, if I'm in a situation where I want to do that, let's say I'm hitting into the wind, I'm going to put that ball back in my stance. So that way I can drive it in lower. I'm going to get my body more forward. I'm going to get my weight forward. I'm probably going to take a little more club and choke up on it because a little more club is going to have less loft, right? And if I choke up on it, that means that I can hit it kind of a similar distance. And if I get my ball back and my weight forward, that's also going to allow me to hit it lower if I really need to hit it lower. If I need to keep it low in the trees, I'm going to put that ball way back in my stance. I'm going to use a low lofted iron, like a 5-iron or something like that, depending on how low or high I want to hit it. I'm going to get my hands forward. I'm going to keep them forward, and I'm going to drive the hands forward as I'm coming through. And I'm going to keep it really low as I'm coming through. So like I said, most people don't need to work on really shaft lean at all. The only people that really need to work on shaft lean would be someone who is coming into contact like this. I very rarely see that. I've been teaching golf for a while now, and I can count on my hands how many people I've seen that do that. So most people don't really need to work on it. Most people, if you just make an adjustment to your ball position and you make an adjustment to how you're coming into contact, getting your weight forward instead of trying to be so angled away. And the reason why a lot of people do that is because they're trying to keep their head behind the ball. The head does not have to be behind the ball. Again, that's not, I know that's like conventional teaching, but it absolutely does not. Look at Sky Scheffler's swing. Sky Scheffler is the best ball striker in the world, and he has his head ahead of the ball at impact. It's not like this, but if you look at him at impact, his nose, if you were to draw a line straight down from his nose, it is ahead of the ball, right? And he also early extends. If you watch Sky Scheffler, another thing that a lot of people are obsessed with, if you watch Sky Scheffler, when he comes into contact, if you were to draw a line on the front of his head is moving away. So that means he is extending. He is extending early, kind of through contact there. Again, best ball striker in the world and early extends. Jack Nicklaus early extended. So these are things that we don't want to get too caught up in, doing because they aren't absolute musts in the golf swing. If you focus on what you need to do in your swing to make ball first contact, center face contact, square the face, have a neutral path, and have some speed behind it, you're going to be a lot more successful in your golf. And like I said, if you want help with that, I do offer online lessons. I can look at your swing, and if you're struggling with any of that, and I can tell you exactly what you need to do or the drills that you need to do to improve it. So if you're interested in that, click the link. If you want to kind of simplify your golf game and get to where you don't feel like you're stuck in mud, then I highly recommend checking it out. You can click the link above the video. So we'll end it right there. Thanks everybody for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Everybody have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you next time.